Hi guys, it's Luke here from Rough Guides, and today we're going to be talking about how you can save money and make the most of it when you're traveling overseas. Today we've got with us Justin Grossbard from Compare Forex Traders. Justin, lovely to meet you. Thanks for having you here. How are you doing?
Very good. I'm very excited about talking about this subject today.
Great, perfect. So are we. Just to kick things off, Justin, you work at Compare Forex Traders. You could probably give us a little bit of a background of the company and what it does and what it means.
Sure. So Compare Forex Brokers is about currency trading. So it's a bit different from what we're going to talk about today. Really, the function of the website is primarily to compare the brokers based on their fees. And the fees is something mainly called a spread. And the spread's the difference between a buy price and a sell price for any currency.
Okay, perfect. And how does that translate to the people that are going to be using foreign exchange services and money abroad?
Well, think about it when you go to the airport. So you go to the airport and you've got those big boards, at the money
Oh,
exchange
yeah.
areas. And you must have seen that say the pounds to the dollar. And the rate that they'll buy and sell it are really different, like alarmingly different. So you go to Google, you know what that exchange rate's going to be. Then you go to the airport and it's completely different. So the key when you travel overseas is to minimize that spread. So that's what it comes down to.
Okay. So it's all about using the right avenues to make sure that you're getting the best deal for using your money in a foreign currency abroad.
Okay, Luke, let's start with you. Okay, so when you travel overseas, let's say you go to a more exotic location. Let's say you go to Thailand.
Okay.
Hopefully you've been there not too long. What did you use for money when you were in Thailand?
I was in Thailand actually not a few years ago. When I was over there, I sort of used a combination. So I'd exchange some hard cash at the airport. I'd exchange some hard cash in country as well. I also had a bank card from the UK, which I didn't want to use, but it was there, and I have to admit, a couple of times when things popped up, it did get used. And I also had a cash card. I believe it was a tuxedo cash card. This is a few years ago now. And what I would do is if I needed to use that cash card, I would use the service transfer wise. I believe it's just called Wise now. To transfer money from my UK account over to that tuxedo account.
Okay, so let's break this down because I think we can rank it. Bringing cash into a foreign country can be a good move, but you got the element of risk. Do you really want to come into a foreign country with like $2,000? There's risk everywhere. There's risk when you're carrying it. There's risk when you get to your hotel. We've all heard stories of putting into safes that aren't quite so safe. So the biggest mistake probably, if you've got cash, is the airport. The rates at the airports are always the worst. So, I'd say to anybody that I'm not going to down cash. It has advantages, but you want to minimize the amount that you exchange at the airport at all. Maybe enough for the cab to your hotel, but really, it's never a good deal at any airport. And then when you're on location, obviously that's when you'll be transferring it. But but still, the buy and the sell are going to be quite different. That spread is going to be wide. The next one is your bank card. Okay, bank card. Biggest mistake you can make, and I made it in Ibiza, I have to admit, and it's don't use a credit card for cash. Okay, that is the golden rule. As soon as you use a credit card, you get an advanced bank fee. That can be £20, sometimes a lot more. Then they'll charge you interest. Then they'll give you a horrible exchange rate. It's basically everything. I've made that mistake. Everything you can go wrong. So don't use a credit card. A debit card, a bank card, on the other hand, look, it depends on the bank. Okay, and I'm based in Australia. Australian banks are horrible. As soon as you go overseas, they'll let you use them, and they'll charge you not only fees, but they'll also charge you they'll also give you a horrible spread. So from that perspective, so I'd say if you're going to use your bank card, know it, really analyze it, ask them questions, and then ask them which ATM should I be going to, because you can get different rates at different locations.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, my personal favorite bank, and I've got the card here, is the Citibank. So if you're going to go down this, so Citibank, if you use a debit card, not the credit card, has no international fees, and it gives you almost the perfect rate. So literally, when you Google, they give you something called the MasterCard rate, and it's so close to the Google rate. So when you Google that rate, you're very close to getting it. So little tip, I like Citibank, and if you do go to an ATM, most ATMs will charge you a fee. Depends on the country, could be $10. So you take out quite a bit. But if you can find a Citibank in that country, you get the best rate, and you get no fee. So it's almost that perfect what you wish for scenario. Yeah. But if you go to Thailand, there's one ATM. There's one Citibank in Bangkok. My hotel was close to it deliberately, so you want to do your research for sure and find that Citibank. You mentioned the next element, which is the travel card. So when it comes to travel cards, for me, TravelX is by far the best. So why would you have a travel card over this? First of all, that the ATM, they don't charge you at an ATM for TravelX, so so you can use any ATM and not get charged. Another key thing is if this gets stolen, there will be insurance on it to an extent, but someone could steal it. It's got my bank account. They can start trying to withdraw money. At TravelX, it's not linked to your bank account. You preload it with a preloaded amount. I think it's 10 currencies you can put on, the euro, and a lot of the places that people travel a lot. And if someone steals it, well, obviously you can call up TravelX, stop it, get a new one, but they can't steal more than you're preloaded. And that's the massive advantage with that. So I like the fact that, there's no ATM fees. Preload, there are their own fees, of course, with this type of thing. It's not a free one, but I think that peace of mind from that perspective. Do you think anyone still uses the traveler's checks? I haven't seen traveler's checks in a long time.
I think the last time I even saw a traveler's check, it would have been probably about nearly 15 years ago when I was traveling overseas in China. And that was just because we were advised at that time that because China's quite different, everything's obviously there's quite a big language barrier there. The traveler's checks being sort of something that's recognised, it was used, but I have not. I think that was literally the first and last time I had or saw traveler's checks. I think they might be a thing of the past now.
Yeah, I don't see it, but the spreads on those were horrifically bad again. So it just keeps on having, I find it amazing that when people travel overseas, they will work so hard on these websites to get the cheapest airfare. They'll work 20 hours trying to save a few quid, and then they'll look at the hotels trying to save, but they won't pre-plan their travel. How am I going to use that money? And that could just eat away. That could be 10, 20% more or less, depending on what you're going to use. So you said before, you said Wise. So talk to me about when you've used Wise in the past.
Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while, but from what I can remember, it would just be a simple case of loading the card, the physical card, effectively while traveling with a certain amount. You put in the amount that you wanted in your home currency. So obviously for me that'd be British pounds, say 100, and then you would get their translated version into whatever currency of the country I was in. So this was when I was in Southeast Asia, so we were in Vietnamese dong, Thai baht. And yeah, it would be pretty much £100 will give you X, accept it, or that's it. The rate was offered and there was no sort of options there, and then click, and then normally wait a few days as well. Sometimes it would take a couple of days to get there, but then it would be loaded onto that card to be used how and when I wanted.
Yeah, so look, Wise is changed, a bit. They've still got the card, but primarily what Wise is used is it's used to send money to other accounts overseas. So first of all, let's say you want to pay someone overseas. Every bank offers that service. Okay, so we're going to share the screen if that's okay with you, because I'm going to show you a live. Let's do a live showing of the options when you send money overseas. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to show a live demo so you can see right now. So this is my Wise account right here, and let's say I want to send let's say I want to send here USD to euro. Okay, now the key thing is, look at this. Okay, what I want us to see is these are all the options that you get, and you can see how big a difference it makes on which option you go. So do you see that? Do you see the fees situation?
All different numbers, all different costs.
Let's say from a pounds perspective. Okay, this is the one that I think will be important. Now let's compare, and let's go through like the worst to the best. And I'm not trying to do it, and you can go all the way down. So let's say 1,000. Well, we got £1,000 to euro. Okay. Now look at PayPal. Okay, and I'm sure everyone that's on there has done this before. PayPal is horrible. That their exchange rate is criminal, and then they charge a fee on top of that. So,
wow.
Exactly 1,100, versus and here the recipient gets 1,145 just for one transaction. So that's 45 euro difference during PayPal. So look, I'd say PayPal is so easy, but try not to use it. I know it's, everyone's got something set up, and that's why it's just a laziness thing. But there's not, we've all heard of MoneyGram, that's significantly better. Western Union, I definitely know that Travelex which isn't here, have got really good rates. But as you can see in this example, and I know this is a Wise example, and I'm not trying to promote Wise, but I'm just trying to show you the differences in not to take this and just go, I'll just use my bank, and they allow it, or I'll just use PayPal. Try not to. That's why these services like Wise exist, because they know how criminal. And look, banks are charging a laziness tax. If you have a transactional account and your money just sits, so they don't give you interest on that, so they pocket it. Banks aren't in your interest. PayPal's on your interest. So it's up to you. Are you willing to the inconvenience of 20 minutes to set up something like a Wise account or a Travelex account to send the money, or are you just going to do what you're doing? So, these are the little tips when traveling, sending money overseas, pure logic and worth the time. What was that? 45 euros? 45 euros every time you send 1,000. Yeah, that's significant.
What do you think that, people will work for their hourly wage and put all that money aside, hard-earned money, into a piggy bank or a savings account, who puts in that holiday, whether it be that 1 week they take a year to somewhere close by, or that once-in-a-lifetime trip to go and see something they've always had pinned on their wall, that every minute and every penny and every euro and every dollar that you can put towards that is just going to make the world of difference. And for the sake, like you say, laziness, for the sake of a little bit of research, a little bit of investigation, and just weighing up your options, the money you can save is phenomenal. Where do you, if I was to sort of decide to go away somewhere I've never been before, I'm not familiar with the currency, and like you say, I don't always believe that the bank necessarily has the best offer for me. If I was sat on my computer and go, right, I need to get on this now and find out how I'm going to do it, where would you start? What's the beginning of your process of finding the best way to use this money abroad?
First of all, with Travelex, there's 10 major currencies, so straight away look at that. Do they offer it? And then I'll probably go with a Travelex card for that safety perspective. If not, I would resort to Citibank, because they do every location, and the only variable is, can you find a Citibank ATM? If you can't, it's not the end of the world. I mean, you're going to get a fee and you're going to get a worse conversion rate, but that will be the safety. That will be the safety factor. Once again, don't look. Be careful. Look at stuff like what's a MasterCard rate, what's a Visa rate, and then compare that to Google. It's normally pretty close. I'll just give one tip, and it's not really related with travel, but this is something that is really important, and that is that when you book your flights, always use a credit card, always. And the reason is really interesting, and I didn't even realize it till I needed it, and that is that when I booked for my wife a trip to Hong Kong, and there was an airline that went from London to Hong Kong very cheap, and then they went bankrupt, and I had travel insurance, and so I went straight away, called up my travel insurance, and I was like, "Give me my money," and they said, "Look, plane insolvencies are not covered by travel insurance." And this is a proper policy. And you look at any travel insurance, and they always have that clause saying if the flight company becomes bankrupt, we're not going to cover. But they said, "Did you book with a credit card?" Yes. It says you get it back with your credit card. Any credit card, you get it back because it's a non-receipt of purchase. So if you purchase something with a credit card and you don't get it, you're insured no matter what. So as I said, people, how often do you book flights and you have various options? It may cost 2% more for that credit card. This is the time that you do it. This is the time that I'm saying, don't worry about the bit of a fee. Take the insurance. You never know with flights. You just don't know. And it's that extra protection. And it's amazing how often travel insurance for COVID or something will not insure you, of course. So that's my tip that I learned. I was lucky. I didn't realize this, but that by booking that credit card, it saved me. But everybody remember that when you book a flight, use a credit card.
Wonderful. To sort of expand on that just a little bit, because obviously for most of the people watching this, the flight may be the single most expensive purchase they make when going abroad. And also from a little bit of my own experience as well, how do things compare, if you can sort of enlighten us a little bit, and what would you do? Because often people buy air tickets via sites like Skyscanner, comparison websites that then go through third-party websites that then buy them off the direct airline, versus going direct to the airline if something goes wrong. Because I've had an experience where I've booked a flight from Canada. I couldn't take the flight because of an injury. It was booked through a third-party website, and trying to get any sort of financial reimbursement through them was like trying to push a boulder up a hill. Luckily, I had used a credit card, so I was able to go directly to American Express, and within about 15-20 minutes, that quickly, I had all the money back.
I'm not going to, I normally book direct with flights. I use Google Flights. They're fantastic. There's no need to use these third-party ones, and you can save a few quid sometimes. But the credit card's going to save you. That's what you said. The amount of the pain to go through these parties to get your money versus going back to the credit card, you went to the path of the least resistance right there. So there's no, book whichever way you want, just book through a credit card. That would be my tip. Everyone goes along their own way.
Perfect. And are there any other tips that if you had to drill it down, top 3, top 5, or just your real headline tips that you always think about when you travel abroad and money?
Yeah, it's just it's the fact that if you want a travel X, you need to plan ahead. You can't get it on the spot. If you decide that you want a Citibank account, it's going to take you 2 to 3 weeks. The amount of times that people think about it the day before, it's too late. So that will be my tip. If you bring cash, the best advice I can give to you is take the cash, small amount at the airport, go to your hotel and lock it in the safe. Don't try to hide it in somewhere, because I think there's a better chance that you'll lose it by trying to hide it versus putting into a safe and it been stolen. So I kept on, my friends have all had techniques, and the amount of sad stories that they had because they lost it or a coin, and it just put in the safe. And that will be my greatest. And then once again, do not use a credit card for cash. Again, it is a horrible, if you don't have enough money before you travel, get a loan from somewhere, whatever it is. It's not the problem of going into credit with the credit card, it's the fact that when you're trying to get cash out of a credit card, they will fine you and they will give you a horrible rate. They will do everything bad to you that is possible. So I don't have a problem with someone racking up a credit card debt. I have more problem of trying to use it for cash, like I did in the visa. So that was a very expensive lesson. And of course, you don't know these lessons until you get back home and you get your statement and you realize, oh geez, what are all these advance charges? Why didn't I thought I was going to get that Google rate that I had, so and it was all completely incorrect. So don't make these mistakes when you go overseas. You might take your Citibank, take your TravelX, lose one, you still got the other. I went to Phuket. I got a bit drunk, and in Australia, you put in your ATM, you put in your PIN number, then the ATM comes back up and you get your money. Now in Thailand, some genius made that you put in your numbers, then you get your cash, and then about 1 minute later, your card comes up. So when you're a bit drunk, you take your cash and you go. And of course, your debit card is still in there. So, if you lose that, if you're saying, I'm going overseas and this is what I'm going to use, well, what happens if it doesn't work? You've got to have a backup. So that's my advice, is take two forms of payment when you go, and maybe a bit of cash in combination. And at least you've got the safety that if something goes wrong, if the bank thinks that there's a fraud and stops it, you don't want to be stranded. There's nothing, I've been there, nothing worse than being in a foreign country and thinking that you'll run out of money. It is a horrible feeling. And look, the other tip is, if that really happens, if you're really in a horrible predicament and you have a credit card, call them up. So like American Express, Visa, there's something called emergency cash, believe it or not, and you can call them up, and once they verify you, they'll deliver cash to your property like within 24 hours. They'll have cash for you. Yeah, emergency cash.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, well, the fees, I don't want to know the fees once again, but if you're in a predicament, call them up. It's like a concierge service with all of them, and they will find a way to get you that money. So in a visa, I had emergency cash. That was the only way I could get it.
Wow, I never knew that. That's a great bit of information. Obviously, like you said, it's safe for emergency. It's nice to have that insurance, that little the safety net, that if you need it got to you, then it can be got to you. Wow, I'm going to write that down. I never knew that, and I thought I knew a bit about traveling and money to all the places I've been. So, thanks for the info.
Compare Forex brokers. This whole business is centered around, fees, lowering the brokerage, just like when you do share trading for CFD, for Forex. Part of the thing about trading successfully is keeping your fees low, and it's the same principle when you send money overseas or when you travel overseas. So use the same principles and plan ahead, and you're gonna have a much better holiday. It's much more fun to have £100 in your hands rather than the bank's taken away from you. So it makes a big difference for your trip, and and that peace of mind when you're overseas and you know what rate you're going to get as you plan, rather than going overseas and you put it in and you go, oh, I thought this hotel was only going to cost me £500 and it's really 560 because that exchange rate that you have factored in isn't going to be the exchange rate that you actually get. Oh, sorry. One more little tip. Okay, sometimes you go to the ATM and they say, how would you like that? So I say, I want 1,000 baht. And he says, would you like that as 1,000 baht or would you like that at 80 quid? So they're trying to say, you're going to get the baht, but they're trying to say, to help you, we can give you it in a quid amount, so 80 pounds, and we'll give you that amount. Never do the 80 pounds. They charge you more. So you think, oh, that's convenient because now I know what it is. No, there's fees on that. It's actually a trap. So always go for the local currency when you're given the two options. I know you mean to go to calculate and try to work out how much you've just taken, but it's a trap. And yeah, and most people fall for it. So do not fall for it.
It's another laziness tax where you think that because it's in a currency I understand, I'll go with that. I don't want to have to do the maths, but really that's where they're getting you.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, well, everywhere there's a laziness tax. Using PayPal, using your bank account. Going to the airport. There it is. I can just transfer my dollars now. It's all laziness tax. And if that's going to make your trip 10, 20% more expensive, it's significant. And you've worked so hard for your money. You've worked so hard. You've worked hours to try to get that cheapest flight, the cheapest accommodation that you can, and suddenly, all that time is unwound because you're paying all this money to a bank. So keep these things in mind.
Justin, thank you for all of those little gems of information. I've learned a couple of things, and I thought I was pretty savvy with all this kind of stuff. So I've come away humbled, and every day's a school day. Obviously, if you do want to find out more about what Justin does and compare forex brokers, you can go to the website, which will be down in the information bar below. Justin, thanks really very much for coming here and teaching us all about these different things. It's been a pleasure. Lovely to have met you.
It's been fantastic. I hope I've saved a few people a bit of money by learning about this conversation.